I was stuck in the most horrific traffic this morning. Just a total sea of brake lights.
Oh yeah, that is the worst way to start a day.
It really is. But instead of just sitting there being annoyed, I actually found myself just staring at the highway barriers.
As one does when trapped on the interstate.
Right, exactly. But I started really thinking about why the highway was there in the first place. Like, why did it curve left right there? Why were all the fast food places clustered at that one specific exit?
You were looking for the logic behind the layout.
Yeah, it felt like I was looking at this hidden code I didn't quite have the key to decipher.
Well, you were basically doing some amateur spatial analysis right there. Most people just see the delay, they see the annoyance, but you were actually looking at the underlying infrastructure.
And that is exactly what we are getting into today. Welcome to the deep dive. We are taking a look at a really fascinating set of sources on the foundations of spatial analysis and geographic organization.
Specifically, we're digging into AP Human Geography Topic 1.4, which covers spatial concepts.
Right. And our mission for this deep dive is to basically hand you the foundational toolkit that geographers use to read the world like a book.
It is a great topic because I think it completely flips the script on what people think geography actually is.
Yeah, it's not just staring at maps or memorizing state capitals.
Exactly. We aren't just looking at where things are. We are looking at the rules that organize human life. It's about analyzing how phenomena are organized, how they move, and how they relate to one another.
Which brings us to that word I used earlier, spatial. I used to think spatial just meant, taking up space, maybe something to do with outer space.
A lot of people do. It sounds very technical. But in this context, it's very grounded.
It refers to how things are organized within space on Earth, right?
Yes, exactly. The arrangement of objects, the movement of people, the flow of ideas. It's the logic behind the where.
Okay, so let's start with the most fundamental building block in this toolkit, location.
Because before you can analyze why something is there, you have to precisely define where it is.
And the source material breaks this down into two types. We have absolute location and relative location. Let's start with absolute.
Absolute location is your fixed point. It is completely precise.
This is the mathematical grid system.
Right. We are talking about latitude and longitude.
Where latitude is measuring the distance from the equator, those are the parallels.
And longitude measures the distance from the prime meridian over in Greenwich, England.
So it's basically the X marks the spot on a treasure map.
Pretty much. The texts use the Eiffel Tower as an example. It is located at exactly 48.8584 degrees north and 2.2945 degrees east.
And the thing about that absolute location is that it never changes. It's fixed.
Right. It doesn't care about the economy or how popular Paris is. It is an immutable data point.
But the reality is, and the sources make a huge point of this, humans do not actually talk like that.
No, not at all.
If I invited you to a coffee shop and gave you the latitude and longitude coordinates, you would think I was out of my mind.
I would probably reconsider the friendship, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because we naturally operate using relative location.
Which means describing a position in reference to other places or features.
Exactly. We use relationships, accessibility, connectivity.
Like saying, oh, that city is a 6-hour drive from Atlanta, or it's just northeast of downtown.
Right. Relative location is all about context. And unlike absolute location, relative location can change.
That's a huge distinction. Because if they build a new highway near your house, your absolute location stays exactly the same.
But your relative location shifts completely.
Mm-hmm.
You are suddenly more connected. You have better accessibility to the city center.
Which makes absolute location the fixed grid. But relative location is about time, space, and how we actually connect to the world.
And that idea of how humans experience the world brings us perfectly into the next big concept, the difference between space and place.
This is such an interesting philosophical distinction because in casual conversation, I use those two words totally interchangeably.
Most people do, but to a geographer, they mean very, very different things. Let's start with space.
The sources define space as this theoretical geometric concept.
Right. It's the blank canvas. It is a featureless surface. It's just the physical gap or interval between objects.
This is purely dimensional.
Exactly. But place is what happens when human beings get involved.
Place refers to the human and physical characteristics that make a location entirely unique.
It is the result of humans taking a blank space and modifying it to reflect their identity, their culture, their history.
The source material uses a really great analogy for this, The classroom.
I love this example. So think about a classroom before the school year starts.
It's just four walls and a floor.
Right. It's just space.
Hmm.
It has dimensions, but no inherent meaning.
But then a teacher comes in, they put up posters on the walls, they arrange the desks in a very specific circle to encourage discussion, they bring in their books.
They fill it with specific educational and personal values. And in doing that, they transform that empty space into a place.
They give it a unique identity, so space is the geometry and place is the meaning we attach to it.
Beautifully put. Now, once we have these places, geographers want to understand how they interact with each other.
Which moves us into the how things move, the concept of flows.
Flows describe the patterns of connection and movement. And this isn't just people moving around.
Right, it's the movement of goods, of information, of ideas.
But there is a very crucial distinction the source material highlights here. You have to understand the difference between a connection and a flow.
So a connection is just the potential for movement, like a physical road.
Exactly. The road is the connection. The car is actually driving on it. That is the flow.
The texts use a theme park to illustrate this, which I thought was brilliant.
Oh, the theme park map example. Yeah.
So if you look at a map of a theme park, the paved paths that connect the different themed lands, those are the connections.
But the flow is the actual pattern of the visitors. Like how the vast majority of people will literally sprint to the newest, biggest roller coaster the second the gates open in the morning.
That mass movement of people, that pattern, is the flow.
Right. And those flows are heavily influenced by a principle called distance decay.
Also known as the friction of distance.
Basically, the further apart two things are, the less connected they are. Interaction naturally decreases as distance increases.
It makes total logical sense. If you need to buy groceries, you are probably going to go to the market that's only 2 miles away.
You're highly unlikely to drive to a market 200 miles away just for everyday groceries.
Yeah.
The signal decays over distance.
The friction gets too high. But, and this is where modern geography gets really wild, we have a concept that actively fights against distance decay.
Time-space compression.
Time-space compression. It sounds like a sci-fi concept, but it's incredibly real.
It's defined as the perceived decrease in distance between two places.
Perceived being the key word there.
Right, because the physical absolute distance between, say, Georgia and Italy never changes. They are exactly as far apart today as they were 1,000 years ago.
But the time and cost it takes to travel or communicate between them has plummeted.
Exactly. Technology effectively shrinks the world.
The sources compare ships to airplanes, or the telegraph to the modern internet.
In the past, communicating across the ocean took weeks. Now, it happens in milliseconds.
And this is so vital for understanding globalization.
You can't understand the modern economy without time-space compression. Businesses use air freight and digital communication to operate instantly across vast distances.
The friction of distance is still there, but technology has given us a way to bypass a lot of it.
It completely reshapes our relative location to one another on a global scale.
Okay, so we've established the where with absolute and relative location. We've turned empty space into meaningful place. We've tracked the flows of movement and how technology causes time-space compression.
Which leaves us with the final part of our geographer's toolkit.
Visualizing the world through geographic patterns.
Because when geographers look at a landscape, they don't just see a chaotic mess of stuff. They are trained to look for specific arrangements.
Spotting these patterns is how you explain why phenomena are arranged the way they are, whether it's for historical, economic, or environmental reasons.
The source material outlines 6 primary patterns. Let's run through them so you can start spotting them in your own city.
The first one is random.
This is exactly what it sounds like. No discernible order or underlying logic to the arrangement.
The example they use is the distribution of pet owners in a city. Unless there's a very specific zoning law, pet owners are just scattered randomly.
Right. There's no centralizing force pulling them together.
Which contrasts heavily with the second pattern, clustered.
Clustered is when phenomena are tightly packed together in groups.
Like gas stations or fast food restaurants clustered at a major highway intersection in a high population area.
They cluster together because they're all trying to access the exact same flow of customers.
Then we have dispersed.
This is when things are spread out wide over a large area.
The classic example being houses or services in rural farming areas. They have to be dispersed because each farm requires a large amount of land.
Exactly. Yeah. You can't cluster massive farms. The environment forces a dispersed pattern.
Pattern number 4 is linear.
Arranged in straight lines.
You see this a lot with transportation, right?
Yes, towns that developed along a railroad track, or houses lined up perfectly along a major river or a road. The artery dictates the straight line of development,
Pattern 5 is circular,
arranged around a central hub,
like traditional medieval town
right,
layouts.
where you have the church or the market plaza perfectly in the center, and all the streets and houses form rings around it. The focus is entirely on that central node.
And finally, the sixth pattern, geometric.
This is regular grid-like arrangements, squares and rectangles.
If you fly over the American Midwest, you see those perfectly square farm plots or the urban grid of Manhattan.
Geometric patterns rarely happen in nature. When you see a grid, you know you're looking at human planning and imposed organization.
It's amazing how much a simple layout can tell you about the history and the economy of a place.
It really is. Geography isn't static. It is a constant analysis of these very active processes.
So, to recap the toolkit we've gathered today from our deep dive into topic 1.4, we moved from the rigid mathematical grid of absolute location to the fluid, connected world of relative location.
We saw how humans turn empty, geometric space into culturally meaningful place.
We tracked the flows of visitors and goods, and we watched technology shrink the globe through time-space compression.
And finally, we learned to read the landscape by identifying random, clustered, dispersed, linear, circular, and geometric patterns.
Before we wrap up, we want to leave you with a final thought to mull over based on the source material. I want you to look around the room you're in right now.
At what exact point did that room stop being just a geometric space of specific dimensions and start being a place?
What are the specific objects, the modifications, the personal touches that act as the signal of that transformation? It's a fascinating way to look at your own environment.
It really changes how you see the everyday world.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Keep observing those patterns around you.
We'll see you next time.